My name's Tyler McMillan. I'm from Pemberton, BC, and I'm an artist currently working and based in Vancouver, BC. My style, I would describe it as somewhere between like illustration and graphic design and alternative culture inspired lo-fi. I was really psyched to get involved with this, especially through like Kai, who's one of my oldest friends. And also just thinking about Volkl, I'm like, man, I know that company. They've been around forever. That seemed cool too, to just work for like a brand that's, I guess, kind of like a legacy brand.
Hey skiers, I'm Jeff from skiessentials.com.
I'm Bob. How's it going?
Bob and I are here to talk about the brand new 2026 Volkl Revolt 101. This is one that I feel like we've both been waiting to talk about for a while.
Too long.
Yeah, and we've received a lot of questions about it through comments and stuff like that. Today was the date that we were given by Volkl that we could talk about it, so our apologies to anybody who has asked about it, and we've just kind of been silent, neutral.
Yeah, but happy we finally get the opportunity.
Totally. And I was thinking about it today, like, this has been a big part of our season. You know what I mean?
Mid-January was when it started, so really it's been almost 2.5 months.
It's been like a topic of conversation.
Yeah.
Even just like among you and Matt and I.
And other people in the company. Like what?
Totally.
You know, we get asked a lot, like, hey, what's cool for next year? And
Totally.
it's like, this thing.
This thing is cool. Yeah. So it is really exciting. You skied it, like just thinking back to that mid-January, the first time we skied it was at Pico.
Yeah.
You got on that Pico. And I remember coming down and like, it wasn't even really on my radar. You know?
I had no idea what it was. I
Totally.
hadn't heard of it. I had no idea what it was.
Same with
totally
me.
blind.
Same with me. And I remember you coming down and being like, that thing's incredible. And even then I was like,
Right.
yeah, okay, Bob. Like,
Right.
it's a Revolt. It's,
A non-twin tip Revolt? Who wants
like,
that?
What are we even talking about here? So, yeah, it's really cool. Bob and Matt have skied it more than I have. I have skied it quite a bit. Interesting, I probably skied it more this morning than every other time I've skied it combined.
Well, we had a great morning.
Yeah, it was stellar.
Yeah.
It was awesome. You'll see a lot of footage from this morning. So I'm only going to be in the video for part of it. Bob and I will go through construction and shape and stuff like that, and I can talk about my experience and then bring Matt in because I think it does, like, I think that this ski aligns more on paper to a skier like yourself and a skier like Matt more than it does for me.
Yeah.
So you ready to kind of get into it and talk about it?
Sure.
The Revolt line in general is interesting. It's, for one, massive. There's a ton of skis in it, from mid-80 park skis all up through the Revolt 121, which is a massive super rocker powder ski. Bob, you have the Revolt 114 behind you,
Yep.
which is still pretty new to the collection. And when they added the Revolt 114, it was, a lot of us were like, what is that?
What is it doing in the Revolt lineup?
Yeah, why are you even calling it Revolt?
Yeah.
And I think that's still an interesting question and conversation that could apply to this too, but it does make a little more sense now. So essentially the rest of the Revolt line, this is the 104 behind me, they're all twin tips. You know, they all have freestyle influence, park influence, they're all full-on twin tips. That 114 is not really. It's a directional freeride ski that basically was designed for the Freeride World Tour, or that style skiing.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of an outlier in the Revolt line. That said, a lot of people love it. Like, you see it on the Freeride World Tour, you see it on the feet of like big mountain skiers out west, just ripping. And then you even see it like weirdly on the feet of some like very, very, very talented Volkl park skiers.
Yeah.
Which doesn't really make any sense, and something that I did some testing on this just to be like, what's going on here? So this new 101, you know, the simplest way to describe it is it's basically a mini 114. Pretty interesting.
Yeah, and it made more sense the more we talked about it and talked to people from Volkl.
Yeah.
Kind of the main idea is that this 101 serves as I hate the term low tide.
Yeah, but it makes sense.
It's a low tide
Yeah.
counterpart to the 114. So if
Yeah.
you're a free ride competitor,
Yeah.
and you are based out of Snowbird or Alta or Jackson Hole,
Yep, and it hasn't snowed in a
hasn't
while.
snowed in a while,
Yeah.
this is what you ski on as like a trainer ski.
Yeah, it's pretty.
Because it's
yeah.
the same build, it's the same footprint,
Yep.
different dimensions, same feel. So it just makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
that you would ski on the Revolt 101.
And then like here in Vermont, it's like just across the board more appropriate than the 114.
Correct.
Like we skied it in relatively deep snow today, and you don't really need more width than that.
Yeah.
So it's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Construction's not complicated. You want to walk us through it? And then I think like flex is kind of the important thing.
Yeah, and they control flex like 114 and 101 through the thickness of the wood core.
Yeah.
So it is their multi-layer wood core. It's poplar and beech. Volkl, in most of their skis, put the beech on the outer portions of the ski, more aligning with the edges. Volkl has that reputation for delivering strong and precise power to the edges. They've always had that kind of characteristic of phenomenal edge grip, and it's not an accident. It's because they put the denser wood on the outside and the lighter wood on the inside.
Yeah.
And that's true through mantras as well, where they're getting more power due to denser wood along the edges. So poplar and beech in the wood core, that's it. They
Yeah.
play around with the thickness of it, especially in the hindquarters, I would say,
Yeah.
of the ski, kind of from the
Totally.
heel point back to right about where this odd taper shape starts. It's very thick, and then that kind of continues through the front as well. So thicker wood core through most of the ski, that delivers the flex, the stiffer flex and more edge grip. So, I'm pushing pretty hard. And
Yeah, you want to do flex right now?
It's pretty stiff.
It's a pretty stiff ski. I mean, it's the real deal, and it's like supple too, and it's flex.
It's
damp.
even
Yeah.
throughout.
Yeah.
And it's actually really similar to this 114.
Yeah, and in comparison, this is the 104. Again, more of a twin tip, and it's just significantly softer.
Yeah.
So if you were wondering, like, well, why do they need a 101? Because they have a 104. Not only are the shapes very different and the performance is very different, but the flex is quite different.
Yeah.
You weighed one this morning.
Yep.
They're not tremendously light.
No, contrary to Volkl's press release, which
Yeah,
calls it a lightweight ski, but
We'll give them a pass on that. I
Yeah.
think they just kind of throw those words around. Like,
yeah. No, it's in the 182 here, it's 2,150 grams.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty close to a Mantra 102 and a 184.
Right.
So,
yeah. So it's not a light ski.
not a light ski.
But I think it needs to be heavy.
to do what it's supposed to do.
Yeah, and
Yep.
to do what it does.
What it does.
Yeah, I mean it's really cool. So that's about it for construction. Again, it's not complicated, but that flex is really important to understand, and I would say being aware of the heftiness is important too.
Yeah.
You want to talk about shape?
Yeah,
Shape-
because that's
shape
where
is
it's
pretty interesting.
That's where it's more interesting than
Yeah.
construction.
So it is a rocker, camber, rocker shape, and there is both a lot of tip and tail rocker, but it's directional. So I'm glad you flipped that
Yeah.
over, because the amount of splay in the tail is pretty minimal.
Compared to the length of rocker.
Exactly. So in most snow conditions, you actually retain a pretty long effective edge, but then it does have that like almost like pointy pin
Yeah.
tail style, which like it helps a lot because it lets you kind of manipulate the end of your turn pretty easily, and it helps in soft snow because you can let it kind of sink a little bit.
Yeah, I always play the game. Imagine if it weren't there. Imagine if
Yeah, oh my God.
it were not tapered.
It would feel like it was trying to break your leg.
Right. So skis like this that are stiffer and a little bit heavier, that are designed to mix on and off trail skiing, they need this type of tapered shape to it, or else it's just going to be unpleasant. You'll be on a 101 millimeter race ski that does not release from turns.
All right, we're going to be real unscientific here, Bob. I did measure this stuff when I was mounting mine. So remember 39 centimeters of tip rocker,
Okay.
approximately. I'm going to put that right there for a second, because I thought this was fascinating. Like it is, I'm going to call it a directional ski, and I'm going to stand by that. But by the numbers, it's super interesting because there's 41 centimeters of tail rocker.
Which is higher than the previous number.
That is a bigger
39.
That is a bigger number. So yeah, by length of rocker, there's actually longer tail rocker, which is really interesting. But it is like stiffer back here, and it doesn't, because it has that low splay, it doesn't really feel like that.
Yeah.
But of course, Bob, when you do that, when you make a ski with technically longer tail rocker than tip rocker, given my preferences of skis, I'm probably going to do something weird. And I did something weird. So the recommended mount point is -7, which I think makes sense for this ski. It's like directional charging.
Yeah, I even think it feels a little forward.
Yeah, it could go,
there's a lot of tail.
Right, could go further back.
Yeah.
I did the opposite. I went +3 from
As
the
you do,
recommended
yeah.
line. Again, kind of thinking to the people that have skied the 114 in the park, and I was like, I got to figure out what's going on here. So, yeah. And then 3D, it does have 3D turn radius. Remind me the numbers, they're pretty close.
Pretty close, and that's kind of the theme with Revolts, is that their 3 dimensions aren't very far off. So it's 24 in the tip, 19 waist, 22 tail.
So essentially a 20-meter turn radius.
Pretty much.
I think that's pretty fair to say. 20, 21. Some Volkl skis, it really feels like you can play around with the 3D radius. I would say in this ski, I never even noticed it.
I would say that this is pretty squarely a 20-meter radius ski.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't really love to deviate all that much, I suppose.
Totally. And then
a carved turn.
The last thing I'll say about shape, because I feel like we've been talking about shape for a while, but it's very interesting. Side cut dimensions, Bob, are 133, 101, 115. So almost a 20 millimeter difference between tip width and tail width. What is on my ski?
Some fuzzies.
Some fuzzy trash stuff from the floor. We talk about taper in regards to early taper a lot. This is a ski that's a great example of total tip to tail taper, which generally adds some maneuverability. And that's all I'll say for construction and shape. You got any questions for me before I get out of here and let you and Matt talk about it?
Yeah, we'll kind of do a mini Q&A. I didn't write anything down.
That's fine.
Kind of have it memorized by now.
Sure.
On trail, does a 100 millimeter underfoot wood core ski with this wild shape have any business carving as well as it does?
Nope. Doesn't really make sense.
Okay.
It makes like round, clean, pretty, dynamic carving turns. Way better than it should.
Okay.
It doesn't really make sense to me, but it's really fun to ski. It's wide, so you can trust it. Like, I skied it. I think the first time I ever skied it, we did classic nosedive S turns to Perimeral. And coming down nosedive S turns, I was making like rounder turns, like slarvy turns.
Yep.
And I was at first blown away that it can do that, because it's so stiff that I thought it was going to be more like rigid and kind of fight you, but it's very, it's very intuitive and supple, just making these like round kind of slarvy turns. And then, I was blown away by edge grip. And it's kind of like one of those things where I had already watched you and Matt ski it a decent amount, so I knew it could do it. Particularly Matt, not to take anything away from you, but the way that Matt like bends it, I think he's just, he's young and he doesn't.
He bends more than I bend, so he
both
stands to reason.
Yeah, totally.
Like
more. Watching Matt do that, I knew that it could do it, but I still was shocked feeling it. It's it's crazy. On trail.
It has no business doing what it does based on the stats and on paper.
No.
We got some nice snow today.
Yep.
We got in some woods.
Yep.
We got in the park, kind of more of what I would say it's designed for.
Today.
Today.
Yep.
Is this going to supplant any of your 100 millimeter twin tips as a park ski?
No,
in
not
any way, shape, or form?
No, not as a park ski, but I certainly enjoyed doing that, and I understand like why a really, really strong skier would like skiing it in the park. You truly would have just like pure strength, not like strong in ability level, like strength. Like if you're a strong, powerful human being and you want to dabble around in the park or do some cool park stuff, absolutely, I understand why somebody would choose it. But skiing it through like choppy snow conditions today, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
I had a blast.
Did you ski it at all during the ski test in like the spring snow?
I did not, but I can only imagine it would absolutely excel.
Yeah, I'll just chime in there that it is unbelievable spring condition ski.
So, yeah, I mean, it's interesting for me. I would say the thing that I don't struggle with, but maybe like the one thing that I could point to that it doesn't do particularly well, and this might be something that you and Matt talk about, and maybe you feel different things than me, it's not like quick, or at least I can't get it to be.
Shallower edge angles required for that quickness.
Yeah.
It's not gonna bounce back and forth as easily as some other skis.
It's like in the trees, you know, I want something like lighter and softer, basically, because I just feel like I benefit more from it. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. Again, like on paper, I don't necessarily think it's a ski that's designed for somebody like me. I own plenty of skis that I would probably choose to take out, plenty of skis in this width range that I would choose to take out over this. But I know so many people that it's fantastic for, and you and Matt are two of those people. Other Matt, like Matt McGinnis, I feel like he would love it. Tons of like Jose from Mad River, like tons of those like more free ride style skiers, and that's kind of how I think about Matt.
So that was kind of going to be my last question for you, because this one concerns me. It doesn't. The question doesn't concern me. The answer does.
Oh.
When I first got on this, I'm like, this thing is amazing. This is one of the coolest skis I've ever been on.
Yeah.
Who's going to buy it? Like those guys that you mentioned, they're not going to buy it. Like it would suit them.
Sure.
But who's going to buy this thing?
Yeah, I mean, good question. I hope people.
Yeah.
You know, like, and so many of the skis that we talk about where we're like, yeah, it's a super fun all mountain ski and it can ski in the park. And like somebody who's probably skiing or probably watching a video like that, and maybe they don't ski in the park that much at all. I would say this is going to be a better choice for a lot of those skiers. Or like if you're bigger, like your size, and you need something supportive, then yeah. So I think
are you going to talk someone out of a QST 100 or a Black Rose Justice to get into a Revolt 101?
I mean, Black Rose Justice would be an like I don't know if I could do it with that one. Yeah. Because both like kind of accomplish similar things. They do feel different, so it would more be like a shape preference than a performance difference.
Yeah.
I could see myself talking somebody out of a QST 100 into a Revolt 101 if they were real chargy.
Yeah.
Like I think that's the key, is you have to ski fast.
Yeah. They do work better when you're
Yeah.
ticking up the aggression level.
Yeah.
But that was just one of the things that has been rolling around in my head since mid-January is I hope that this is a successful ski.
I hope so too, because it's like it's unique.
Yeah.
You know, like there's not that much out there like it.
Yeah.
And I like developments in the industry. I like new shapes and skis, and I think there's something here that I think a lot of people would like.
Yeah.
So I would like to see it take off and do well.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's like arguably more people should choose that than a 104.
Yeah.
Arguably, you could present both arguments, and I think you could win both arguments depending on your debating skills. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn myself into Matt.
Okay. Hey, Matt.
Hey.
How's it going?
Good. I love snapping into
welcome.
these. Thank you.
A little bit of movie magic. Hopefully that comes out great.
Yeah.
So Jeff and I were talking about this Revolt 101, which you and I have admittedly put on more time than Jeff. And, you know, I'll ask you some questions about you, and I see you've come prepared with some hard-hitting questions for me.
I have.
So, you know, we've covered the shape and the construction and the profile and all that stuff. Basically looking for your impressions of how this thing works on trail, off trail, and then anything else that you want to cover.
Sure.
So I asked Jeff this question, and I'll ask you the same thing. Does this ski at 100 millimeters underfoot with no metal in it and this wild shape have any business carving as well as it does?
Short answer, no. But the stiffness surely does help out a lot. I will say I was shocked during our media day when we finally got on it, and I was like, how does this not have metal? How is this being able to carve this well in a 182? And I was just very, very, very impressed. And the overall impression was just unexpected.
Yeah.
Like I know that you tried it out before any of us and just had a lot of really good things to say about it. But just this ski, I would not imagine coming out of Volkl's design shop.
Or the Revolt, like
Or
the
the
Revolt line.
That was
You know,
almost the question of mine. Of is this a Revolt?
Right.
So, no, I like overall very, very impressed for stability, edge grip, power, and carving capability. Just all off the charts. And that's pretty crazy coming from a free ride ski.
Right.
So very, very cool. Had a handful of days on them in pretty much every single type of conditions that you can get. So,
But we've had a lot of like firm, smooth days.
Yeah.
Like we've had a lot of those. Today was one of the first days that we got on that it was like somewhat soft. But for smooth snow, they work incredibly well.
Very well. And that's another part, like that's not necessarily what they're designed for.
Right.
But they do it really well.
Yeah.
But I remember I had it on a day where we kind of had, it wasn't a full like freeze thaw cycle, but it was definitely a day where we had about 6 inches of fresh snow and then a little bit of a crust layer underneath. And that's where I found that they weren't the most happy, that stiffness and that taper shape in the tail. It was a little bit harder to release. But today, in contrast with a bunch of fresh snow and that firm snow underneath, that was when they really did well. That stiffness really helped you stay stable and stay in control, but then the really wide tip shape really kept it nice and floaty. So overall, really cool. I think that the market needed a ski like this. There wasn't one out there like it. Like, sure, there's a Sakana with a wild shape, but that's a 105.
Yeah.
And sure, there's a Mirror's Core with a crazy shape, but nothing in this range with this wild of a shape.
It's funny because Jeff and I just talked about that, how this is a unique ski and that it's hard to pinpoint. It's hard to come up with someone who's just gonna walk into a shop or scroll through our online selection and be like, yep, that's for me. Like, I think that that's gonna be a tricky part for Volkl because it is so different than a lot of other skis. And, you know, obviously if you're a 114 skier, maybe you're gonna be more gravitated towards this, but there aren't a whole lot of like 114 skiers. Like that's another unique kind of option. I remember you saying on that 6-inch crusty day that you weren't blown away with how well they handled that.
No.
And like I kind of felt the opposite way. I was like, I like how the tails are easier to release. You know, they do have that really kind of pointy shape, and like I think bigger skiers like us can at least get through the stiffness of the ski to access this part. But yeah, I felt like in our ski test and in spring snow they were incredibly good in slush with ice underneath.
Yeah.
And just motored right over it and were extraordinarily powerful.
Right. What I was struggling with was that typically skis with a wider tail, kind of like a boat, they tend to plane off after a bit, and these just kind of wanted to stay like that. So like that part is what I was struggling with, and that was very condition dependent. But other than that, like there is a lot of rocker to these things in the tail.
Yeah, we measured it more than the tip.
Right.
You know,
and
which
like,
is just a wild set.
Add another weird thing to this ski,
right?
And it's that tail rocker, but very unique. If you're looking for a very unique experience, then like if you're scrolling through, being like, I want an interesting ski now. Yeah. This would jump off the page for sure.
And I think it also has a lot of kind of traditional notes to it. You know, like kind of an old school skier in a free ride mentality. Yeah. You kind of pair up well with this. So yeah, soft snow. We got in some powder today. Had a pretty good time. Were you impressed with the soft snow performance, or you want something more?
No, I think that this was more than enough for today. Yeah. And I think that because of the soft snow that we had today, that unlocked the maneuverability I was looking for. Yeah. And I didn't really have that much left to be desired, really. But then moving on to firm snow performance, that's where my mind was just blown. Yeah. Like there was a couple of days where it was pretty firm out there, or maybe there's pack powder groomers that we were skiing, and I could just trench this thing. Yeah. And like fully lean into it, full confidence, and that's where that stiffness and I would say dampness kind of took over, because they're fairly damp.
Yeah, it's
for
just
me.
that thick wood core that insulates you from the snow,
Right.
from any vibrations, which is crazy.
Yeah, and then the shape takes over after that because I found that this wide shovel just rips you across the fall line. As soon as you get to about the apex of your carve, it just rips you right across. And that part is super fun and dynamic for me that I really enjoy. But yeah, I mean, in the 182, I didn't really find a speed limit. I didn't really think at any point, I wish I had the 189.
I think today was like the first day that you and I both were kind of like, all right, for this like pretty heavy, choppy snow, this is they were very Western conditions, I would say.
Yeah.
Today. And yeah, today was the day that I'm like, okay, I'd take a 189 for today, or if I skied in Montana or Wyoming or something where big open areas are below me. But for our daily Vermont usage, probably not much of a need for the longer ski.
No.
But also, I skied the 175 on our media day and had a wonderful time.
Totally fine.
It was great, yeah.
Sweet.
I kept expecting the tail to wash out, and it never did.
No.
Like, that was the most impressive thing for me in a carve turn.
Yeah. No, full confidence from tip to tail.
Yeah.
From beginning to end of the turn. Pretty sweet.
Awesome. Do you want to
Questions?
hit me with some questions and see if we haven't covered them already?
Sure. All right, we're going to start on trail.
Okay.
Do you think the tail shape, overall fully tapered shape of the ski, influenced a carved turn from beginning? How did it influence from beginning of the turn to the end of the turn? Does it differ? How does it differ from a traditional shape ski with more of a bulbous tail?
The tracking of this is what sets it apart from those with more bulbous tails that want to provide more rebound at the very, very end, whereas this one will just continue around through until your input makes it get into the next one.
Okay.
So something like your older declivity 102, like that's kind of a prototypical ski that I talk about with more of a bulbous tail.
Yeah.
And that thing provides just amazing rebound, like one turn to the next for a 102. And then this one just likes to keep going across the hill.
Gotcha.
You know, it doesn't really want to rebound you as much. And I think that's a direct descendant of the 114's mentality, where if you're in like a big mountain situation, you don't want the thing to come around because then you're going to high side yourself.
Right.
So you want it to be able to track through without like providing tons of rebound.
Sure.
And that's kind of where that narrow section really highlights the backside of the ski.
Gotcha. And then would you say precision stays about the same?
I wouldn't say that this is a precise ski in the back.
Right.
I would say it is more amenable to hooking into a turn in the front.
Right. That
I
rip
don't-
you across the fall line feeling.
Yeah, it starts with precision and then ends with your input. And I think
Gotcha.
that's kind of what you're talking about with the softer snow too, as being more rudder-like.
Yeah.
And that happens on firmer snow, but it's a different feel.
Gotcha. Would this be considered as a Bob one ski quiver for Stowe?
Yep. If you gave me this ski and said, here, you can't ski anything else for the year, and this is what you have to ski. You have to ski it with kids. You have to ski it for your work. You have to ski it by yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yep.
I thought so. I knew that answer. Would you add any metal to it?
You could argue underfoot would be a place to put metal just to really boost the edge grip. I mean, it's already a heavy ski, so
Right.
it's not like an underfoot metal laminate's going to add a lot of weight.
Yeah.
You know, it might just add more edge grip, but then it might conflict with the softer snow. So only there, but no,
Okay.
I would not.
Cool. All right. Moving to off trail. How did you find their mobility? Condition dependent, terrain dependent, or skier dependent? Or any combination of those?
Skier input's big, because I remember skiing this 114 a few years ago and thinking, wow, this is not a ski for everyone.
Right.
Like, you need to have a focused mentality, and you need to be on it, and you need to have some strength.
Sure.
So yeah, skier input is huge with the 101. Conditions, I think, are kind of 50-50, I'd say. You know, I've had wonderful times off trail on this ski. Like,
Yeah.
I haven't had an issue at all. I think that just being a little bit shorter in the 182 kind of opens up the versatility for me, that I don't have to try too hard to get it to move. I mean, we were in some pretty tight woods today, and other than the weight, it's not difficult to use.
Yeah, you look great
Yeah.
in there. Just
Yeah, it was fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Kind of already talked about this one. So, did the tail taper offset the stiffness and long and low rocker profile of the tail in softer snow? Do you think the tail helped the edge
Yeah.
release because of the taper?
Yeah, it does.
And offset that stiffness.
It does.
Okay.
That's exactly what happens, and that's, it's no wonder that they have engineers and working with pro skiers on this shape of ski saying, all right, well, we need it to be more narrow in the very back, otherwise it's going to hook up and we're going to have trouble releasing turns.
Right.
So and it's in this 114 too, where it's this very end is quite narrow. So yeah, you definitely need that in order to be somewhat releasable. Otherwise, you're in trouble out there.
Totally. Because, I mean, if this had this build
Yeah,
with that big of a tail, that would be a pretty monster ski.
it sure would.
That would be a beast.
Yeah,
So yeah, I definitely think that it's almost necessary to
Yeah.
have that kind of taper. But yeah, that's all I have for my heavy hitting questions. It seemed like we already talked about all of them, but
No,
that's okay.
It's all good to get more perspectives for sure. Jeff and I talked about I'm hopeful that people will ski on this and buy this.
Yeah.
Like, who do you envision walking into a store and buying this ski?
Younger park kids who want something new to show off to their friends.
Yep.
Probably be like, oh, show up with a cool fancy new ski. But then I think skiers like me,
Yeah.
who are somewhat directional free ride skiers that want something new to try that provides the stiffness and stability that they are looking for, but then also want dynamic performance. So I think that someone like me, and then people like you, who are just a directional skier that wants mobility but support. So I think that would probably be the three groups. I wouldn't say someone that's a pure freestyle kid would have a lot of success.
Yeah. To be using it in a freestyle capacity, that's
Right.
that's where that Revolt 104 comes in for sure.
Yeah.
That wider twin.
Right.
Yeah, I've been hopeful that people will get on this. I think that even someone that has more of a front side bias, maybe they're on a Stokely Montero AR, like some high performance, low to mid 80s carver.
Yeah.
They want a wider ski that doesn't want to give up carving potential. They don't want to go to a floaty or QST 100. They still want, on trail response, but soft snow capability. I think
Yeah.
that technical skier could also find themselves here.
Kind of like a Ryan Daniel.
Yeah, I bet he would really enjoy this as his softer snow ski.
Yeah.
Yeah, someone with a race background that is looking to move into more free ride.
Right.
So, I don't know. I'm hopeful. I really, really like this thing and really hope that more people get on it and try it out.
They should.
Yeah.
Yeah, just for a unique experience too. And just make I think it's one of those skis that will put a smile on your face.
Yeah.
Like, it's not, some people just get a ski and it's like, cool, it's a ski, it does its job, move on, whatever. But this
Yeah.
is one that you're kind of like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
And it's totally unassuming. Like,
Yeah.
I was telling Jeff, I had no idea what it was. I got on it and my expectation level is here. And then
Yeah.
the reality of performance is well beyond.
Totally.
So I really enjoyed it. But yeah, that's it. That is 2026 Volkl Revolt 101. Matt, thanks for joining as always.
Thank you for
If
having
you
me.
guys have any questions on Revolt 101s or other Revolts, please feel free to reach out and we will talk to you soon.
Bye.
Hey, Rob.
That's a pretty good opening.
Yeah, so I'll stick with you for a little bit, and then I'll kind of jump back and forth between Matt and Bob.
Okay. Good.
Yeah. It was cool though.
These things are awesome.
We got a lot in there.
Holy hell. Just seamless and goes from just trenching to like, nice.